Council of Jacksonville. We do have a quorum, so I will again call us to order at 6 o'clock. We're here for two items. Number one is to discuss and consider possible action regarding a resolution approving an engagement agreement for bond counsel legal services with Norton Rose Fulbright U.S. LLP, providing for written notice and findings pursuant to Chapter 2254 of the Texas Government Code and authorizing the mayor to execute necessary documents.
Yes.
Mr. Anissa, would
Yes.
you like to give us an update?
Yes, sir. I'm asking our Chief Financial Officer, Roxana Briley, to come up and introduce actually both items.
Okay,
She
cool.
will take a vote on each individual item, but she has a couple of guests here that will come up and give presentations. And so with that, Ms. Briley, you can take over.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council.
Yes.
Just as you stated, there are some requirements with the state legislature, such as those for bond counsel services. A representative, Kristen Savant from Norton Rose and Fulbright, is here in case you have any questions. And what we're asking you to do is to sign the engagement letter. It's just a bit of housekeeping. They started working with us with our Texas Water Development Board wastewater treatment plant expansion project. And then they drafted the notices for the language tonight, and then also at the June meeting where we issued the COs. I did see a couple of questions, one being about the fee, but the fee will actually be covered whenever our financial advisors present all the details about the certificates of obligation. So Kristen is here if you have any questions. If not, we just ask that you approve their engagement letter.
Okay. And that was in our packet, right, the engagement letter?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
There's a resolution that she's asking to actually approve. The resolution authorizes the engagement of the engagement letter. And so there was, in your packet, should have been the memo as well as the ordinance and the engagement letter itself.
Right.
This is standard practice with bond issuances.
Did you want to go ahead and get a motion, then you?
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, I'll move that we pass a resolution approving an engagement agreement for bond counsel legal services with Norton Rose Fulbright U.S. LLP, providing for written notice and finding pursuant to Chapter 2254 of the Texas Government Code and authorizing the mayor to execute necessary documents.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilman Tim McRae,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Mindy Gallup. Now, any discussion of that? Surprisingly, I read the engagement letter. And, yeah, well, yeah, I'm a nerd, so. And then like Roxana said, it looks like it's just housekeeping. Everybody gets an engagement letter, so, yeah. I've never gotten. You never got, well, yeah, I bet I have one signed back in the day. So, any discussion from anybody else? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
All right, moving on to the next item. As you recall at our June meeting, you all voted to issue certificates of obligation for a few purposes: improvements to the public safety complex, acquisition of firefighting and other public safety equipment and vehicles, street improvements, and payment of the professional services related to the above mentioned items. Tonight, we have the pleasure of welcoming Mr. John Martin and Mr. Michael Martin from Hilltop Securities. They've been here in the past to make presentation to you, and they are going to give you the results of the public offering of the certificates. And you should all have a handout.
Yes.
A package.
Yeah,
Perfect.
thank you, Roxanne.
You're welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor and council.
You bet.
I'm Michael Martin with Hilltop Securities. I work with my father, John Martin. We serve as the city's financial advisor for all things related to debt. Just going to go through some of the key highlights from this book that you guys have in front of you.
Okay.
Starting with the last page of tab 1. It's going to have members of the financial team. The title is there. Let's see us, we serve as financial advisor. You have Ms. Kristen Savant from Norton Rose Fulbright serving as bond counsel. And for this deal, the purchaser or underwriter is Raymond James and Associates. We decided this time around to sell the bonds on a competitive basis. In the past, we've done a negotiated sale where the city will appoint an underwriter beforehand, and then we'll pick a specific time to go into an order period and sell the bonds. This time around, we did a competitive sale. I'll go kind of explain how that works later on. Going to tab 2, it's going to be, it says ratings direct at the top. This is the S&P rating report. Beginning of this process, we reach out to S&P to request a rating for these bonds. It's a lot of work from city staff involved in that, getting all the information that they require for the review and answering questions and having an hour-long phone call as well. Mr. Hubbard and Ms. Riley did a great job of getting that information over to them. Happy to say that the S&P affirmed the A+ rating from the city. We think that there's an upgrade coming on down the road, but now is just not the right time. Just a couple highlights I want to go through in here, and feel free to pop in if you have any questions. On page 3 of the report, towards the bottom, solid financial performance with very strong reserves and liquidity that we expect the city will maintain. Strong financial management policies and practices that include conservative assumptions, multi-year forecasting, and a recently implemented long-range capital planning. Regular budget to actual and investment monitoring, formal debt, investment, and reserve policies, and a strong institutional framework score. So moving on to tab 3. So this is what it looks like whenever the bids come in. This morning it was around 10 a.m. And so you have 5 bids there. Raymond James being the winner by a pretty significant margin there. We typically don't see that wide of a spread between the first bid and the second bid, but that's great news for you all.
So could you explain what the 3.392, is that the average interest rate that they think they'll
Yes, that's
sell these
whenever
bonds?
someone asks you what rate did you get, that's
Okay, that's what that
that's
is.
the rate. And that's the winning. That's based on the winning award.
Right.
It changes whenever we resize it and we add in some other things to make sure that the structure is what was
It's
requested.
our cost of the money, right?
Excuse me?
Our cost of the money.
Exactly.
Right.
That's exactly right. So moving on to the second part of that tab, it's gonna have just this little sources and uses page right here. It's kind of like the flow of funds for the bonds. So about $4 million of par amount of certificates, and about $300,000 of premium. We have $4.111 million deposited to the project fund. That is the amount that the city will receive on the closing date when the funds are delivered. Deposit to debt service fund, that's just the rounding amount. Municipal bonds are sold in $5,000 increments, so that just rounds it to get to that $5,000 increment. Cost of issuance budget, I'll go over that in a moment. Underwriter's discount, that's basically the commission for the underwriters to sell the bonds. And then bond insurance premium. So with an A+ rating, bond insurance premium lets you sell the bonds as AA. And for a competitive sale, and this time around, the purchaser actually pays for the bond insurance premium. So that's nothing that comes out of your pocket at all. That's coming from Raymond James. They'll be paying for that. Moving on to the second page of that, kind of a portrait one right here. So this is the actual cash flows of the bonds. And you can see on the left-hand column existing AV tax payments. So that's just your existing debt that you have outstanding right now. The COs that we sold today going out to 2039. First payment will begin in February of 2025. You can see you go from about 1.2 million in existing to about 1.6 million after this sale. Doesn't seem like it's going to impact your tax rate very much at all. And after everything was done and dusted, we came out with 3.429,272. So that's your cost of borrowing on this one. Moving on to the next page. This is the bond production report. So this kind of shows how the premium is being calculated. The best way that I like to explain this to people is that the interest rate there, that is what the city is paying on the debt, and then the yield on the next column over that's what the investor is receiving. So they're paying a premium to get that tax exempt interest. And so that helps cover the costs that I'll go over now. So this is the cost of, the last page is the cost of issuance budget. This is just a budget. Some of these amounts will get adjusted when we get closer to closing. And the contingency amount at the very bottom, that goes back to the city. We return that to you all. You have financial advisor, us, bond counsel, attorney general fee, any type of publicly sold debt has to go through the attorney general's office and get approved, and they like to collect a little fee on that. Then you have the S&P rating fee that, for the report that we got and the rating, and then just some miscellaneous expenses there at the end, paying agent, which is BOK for this. The fourth tab is what we call the notice of sale with a preliminary official statement. So this is what gets sent all around Wall Street to all the potential investors to get an idea of if they'd be interested in buying Jacksonville's bonds or not. And that's pretty much it. I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have. You guys got a great rate today, though.
Will Raymond James keep these in their portfolio, or will they sell them on the
We'll
market?
probably sell them off.
Really?
Yeah.
How quickly will they go, do you think?
They're gone.
Oh, they're going? Okay.
I would suspect, given the bid, that strong bid, that they already have these placed.
Really? Super.
So, thank you for your
Yeah,
presentation.
appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to say that our attorney, Brett Brewer, has done an amazing job at reviewing both the ordinances and resolutions for both of these items, and he has encountered or back and forth with the attorneys and the fund counsel to ask them specific questions so that we are making sure that we're keeping everything decent and in order. Also, I was privy to a phone call earlier today when Roxana was informed of the rates that were being received, and they gave her great accolades as to her due diligence and her work on these particular items. And so we're very fortunate to have someone with such an astute mind here and present with our organization. And so,
That's great.
Your staff is amazing.
Yes.
That you all have. I mean, that you, Mr. Hubbard, Mr. Briley, Ms. Wade, she sat in on our rating calls, and it was kind of fun. And really diligence calls, on everything. And, it was a good, they made it very easy for us.
That's
which
great.
Is fantastic.
That's great.
Thank you all so much.
Absolutely. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Martin? Okay. Do I need to read or just, I'll entertain a motion, for the, issuance and sale of the City of Jacksonville, Texas Combined Tax and Revenue Certificates of Obligation Series 2024A, which would include the adoption of the ordinance authorizing the issuance of those certificates. So I'll entertain a motion. Anybody?
Well, Mayor, I'll make that motion as well, that
Okay.
that we, do you need me to read it, or you want, since you just read it,
You can just, so.
okay.
I'll just-
I'll make a motion to approve that particular ordinance.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Tim McRae. Second by Councilman Rob Goen. Any discussion, question?
I do have a
Yes. go
quick
ahead.
question.
That's great.
And forgive me, this is my first time sitting in on one of these CO meetings. So the bond issued is for 3.9 or for 4.5? It's,
So the par amount of the debt that you're issuing is 3.9 million. Michael talked about that premium amount that the purchaser is paying you. So that's how you get to that $4.1 million in your project fund. So
Okay.
you're borrowing a lesser amount. But that's why you're paying, you have the 5%, 4% interest rates there to yield a lower rate, as explained on that
page is that on?
It's on, it's in tab 3.
Three, yeah, the last one, yeah.
We actually received 4.1 million, and that's how much we get to spend on the project.
Okay,
But we pay back the 3.9.
That's right.
okay.
And see, our resolution says to issue certificates of obligation in the maximum principal amount of 4.5, which we're not doing
Which
that.
we're not doing.
We're not matching it
Okay.
out. We're just yeah.
That was the original notice.
That's right. Yeah, it's kinda like,
Okay.
yeah, we
Alright.
approved the maximum tax rate last year, but we're really not gonna
Very
adopt
We're
that.
not going
See,
down.
yeah,
Okay,
just yeah.
So we'll be going back through this, like I said, yes. We'll be going back through this with you all here next month, towards the end of next month.
Yes, sir.
When it comes to the Water Development Board
Right.
piece. So that's the difference in that versus this piece that Michael presented, that this is an ad valorem tax piece. So that's all gonna go onto your tax rate configuration and in the this coming budget that you all are in the process, if you haven't already.
Right.
Set that tax rate and so forth.
Right.
So then we're gonna go into this Water Development Board deal, and while those are certificates of obligations, those are really going to be, those are gonna be paid back through your enterprise fund, through your water and sewer revenues. So while you ultimately will have, so it's not gonna be a tax burden, if you will, even though it's the same type of security instrument. So we'll be back to you here in a little bit to do the notice of intent for that, where you'll set a not to exceed for that.
Correct.
But
Okay.
these are, that's gonna be a little different too, because you're gonna be placing those certificates directly with the State Water Development Board. And so we're not gonna be taking competitive bids, we're not gonna be engaging an underwriter or anything like that. It's gonna be placed with the state because of this program, the low interest rate program that we get from that.
very helpful, thank you very much.
Okay. So I think we have a motion and a second on the floor. Are we ready to vote? Anybody else have any questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. I think that wraps us up, right? So we'll stand adjourned at 6:17. Thanks for coming.